afternoon, everyone. Great to see everyone. We have Anna Morgan here. Anna Morgan and I, because we were recounting, we actually met on Brenda Miller's LinkedIn Live-a-thon, I think it was back in February.
That's right.
One of the things that's great about networking, and I always recommend this to people, is you get a hold of the speakers and reach out to them because it's a great way to start a conversation. And Anna is here to speak as much as anything else from the recruiter perspective about what's going on with job search right now, because one of the things we talk a lot about is from a job seeker perspective, I hear a lot of different things, and I always love to hear what recruiters have to say. So if anyone wants to just let us know that they're in the chat first, I'd really appreciate that. So I got to ask, Anna, when did you start doing this? I mean, I looked at your background. You've been doing this in different forms. How long have you been kind of focused on the sales and recruiting?
So interesting. I fell into recruiting about 15 years ago. I had been selling print advertising, and I was like, I don't want to sell print advertising any longer, ever again. And I walked into a retail staffing firm, and they recruited me in to do business development and sales. And that's where my recruiting and sales career really began. I had worked in hospitality and some other sales areas previously, and worked agency headhunter positions for many, many years, and then transitioned over to corporate talent acquisition just about 3 years ago. And I'm kind of a generalist, where a lot of recruiters today really niche down and focus on engineering or creative or accounting and finance. I've done a little bit of everything, so which is fantastic for coaching, which I have been doing for about 2 years now. I started doing it part-time when I was working full-time, and then when the pandemic hit and I experienced my own layoff, pivoted into coaching full-time, and now do a hybrid between recruiting and coaching.
So what do you find? I mean, when you spoke in February, you talked about from the recruiter's perspective, I guess it might have been things that you're looking for from prospective job seekers and the like. I mean, for those that didn't attend Brenda's presentation, if you wanted to maybe talk a little bit about that as a good starting point, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. So I typically interview anywhere from 6 to 11 candidates a day. So one of the things I shared is general interview preparation. When I speak to that many people a week, I can tell the difference in those candidates that prepare and how they also show up to those conversations. So I typically just do phone interviews. And for me, obviously, I'm an extrovert. I'm high energy. I'm very conscientious and aware of how people sound on the other line. So I really do my best to make them feel comfortable and have those warm-up questions. But so many people are either just like frigid and super rigid in their communication, or show up very flat to a conversation where it just kind of, it stalls the conversation, right? And then it makes the recruiter having to like pull the information out of them. And that makes it hard for us to connect the dots and be the champion to present them to the hiring manager or the client, whoever it may be. So showing up with enthusiasm, and then making sure you just basically do your research. How did you learn about the company? What do you know? And I like to make fun videos about the comedic things that I see in recruiting, where people are like, yeah, I just saw your company on a billboard and it looked interesting, stuff like that. I've heard all kinds of answers over time.
I'm laughing because Dan Roth said, can't listen but showing up to support. Fun fact, in person, Kenneth would tower over Anna by over a foot.
Really?
I'm 6'5".
That's awesome. My husband is about 6'4", but I am a shrimp. I'm, 5'2.5", 5'3" on a good day. So that's so interesting. So to kind of go back to what the recruiters are saying and what we're looking for is just preparation, energy, enthusiasm, showing that you did a little work up front, practicing, right? Having some of those stories prepared to that match with the job that you're applying to, and make sure you know the role that you're talking about as well. I have a lot of people that show up and they're like, I think I applied to this position. And then we talked about a couple minor adjustments to the resume. Now that we're moving to this global workforce, I always recommend that people provide a company summary under the organization that they worked with that gives us some context. Is this retail? Is this manufacturing? Is this telecommunications? So when we've been tasked for looking for those similar industries and skills, it makes it easy for us to say, oh, okay, now I understand where you're coming from, because people think that we know all these brands, but we don't. And so really to make it easy for the recruiter to say yes and see those similarities, definitely using that statement under the company really is something that I appreciate when I'm looking at hundreds and hundreds of resumes weekly.
So I think that brings up the thing from the hiring manager perspective, they may be looking for a specific role or an opportunity. And then how do you determine the best way to recommend certain candidates? Is it based off a job spec? Is it based also on maybe what you know about the person? Because as recruiters, you're a matchmaker, basically. You're trying to match. And so what are some of the things that you would look for from a job applicant versus what's on a job spec?
So, I mean, I'm looking for the essential requirements, right? Definitely for education, years of experience, industry experience. But a lot of my hiring managers are funny. They're like, well, what's like your personal kind of perspective on this person? And this is an area that I think a lot of job seekers don't realize, is that your first line sourcers, they're evaluating all the different aspects of the conversation. And so how you show up, how you answer those questions, how your resume is formatted, how you follow instructions from the setting up the interview to executing the interview definitely matters. So I would say that the communication style, how they tell their career stories, the measurable accomplishments as far as how many clients, how much revenue they brought in. Those things really make it easy for the recruiter to champion and get excited about saying, hey, I know maybe this person doesn't look perfect on paper, but once I spoke with him or her, they lit up. You can tell they're excited about the opportunity, and they did all this research and they had great questions. So we really factor in a lot of the outside perspectives or personality traits that come into those conversations as well, in addition to making sure that we're checking some of the core boxes. But in this market, I have seen hiring managers much more open to trusting their candidates and say, I know like this is not perfect based on the specs that you have given me, but based on the conversation, their preparation and all the things that they've done, I really think this person has the potential to really accelerate and do well in this type of opportunity.
Thank you very much. I want to make some call outs here. We have Terry Seaman, we have Brenda. All the full kids are definitely hanging out here today, for sure. And Marty Latman. Not everyone knows what every company does. And I have a question that Alex Freund put up. As a recruiter, what's more important for you, hard skills or soft skills?
Oh, man, I think we need to make a poll on that. Hard skills or soft skills? Okay, so I might get some flack for this, but I believe in connection over qualifications because it's human to human, right? Whether it's marketing, social selling, or job searching, if we can make a connection with someone and prove to them that we have the character, the willingness, the drive, the resiliency, the get after it kind of mindset, then people will trust to be willing to develop us. Now, hard requirements, if you are a surgeon, a lawyer, like have letters behind your name, there are definitely qualifications that you have to be successful in that role. So that's why I'm like, but that connection matters. That's why LinkedIn is so powerful. That's why networking to informational interviews and utilizing who you have in your network can really help fast track opportunities and help you get over missing a couple requirements on a job spec.
Thanks. Now, two questions that I get a lot of, and one question is when a recruiter says they're going to get back to you in a week, and a week goes by, and then it's 2 weeks and 3 weeks, it's not always in your control. So I understand that. So the
Right.
question always comes up in terms of follow-up. Do you want follow-up? How often do you want follow-up, and what type of follow-up?
So interviewing and looking for a job is an exercise in sales. And so you have to be pleasantly persistent. And even sometimes if I get a lot of follow up and I'm like, oh my God, this person's followed up like 4 times, it's okay because I need to get back to them. So don't stop until you get an answer. And, it's like, if not now, when? If you are seen as, a pest or pleasantly persistent, it's better to be that person that's getting after it, in my opinion. I don't know if that's the ex-athlete in me or what, but I appreciate it. Now, how you get response from recruiters is being hyper specific about when you spoke, what position you spoke about, and that you're just inquiring on next steps and providing your availability up front, referencing what you took away from the first interview that you felt was powerful or aligned. That helps us go back to the hiring manager and say, hey, Ken, Dan said in his interview, you talked about these 3 things, and he feels, very confident that these align with his experiences. What are your thoughts, right? So it helps keep that conversation going. But don't be afraid to follow up and mix up your communication between text, email, voice note, video follow-ups. Be creative, right? Because the more we see your name and the type of candidate you are, we'll be more inspired to respond and keep you in mind for if you don't get that position, maybe a different one.
One of the things we were talking about before the call is the incessant number of rounds of interviews that are on the other side. And how do you convince these companies that how many rounds do you need to go through? And what if one person's not there for one interview and then you have to do a whole new thing and reschedule again? I mean, is that something that's kind of going on all over in different
Yes.
situations?
So I believe that we're seeing a big transformation in talent and HR teams. And part of that process is working with skilled recruiters. And like I told a hiring manager, I'm making the executive decision that we're just going with 2 VPs for this interview because we're going to lose the candidate. Like I can't wait another 7 days to get 3 people together. It's just silly, right? And so you have to have recruiters that are competent enough to push back and have some of these tough conversations with their talent teams and with the hiring managers to say, hey, here's what I've done to set expectations with a candidate. Now, this is what I need to do. You need to do for this opportunity to really give us access to having choices, right? Because it's the market is super competitive right now.
This is a great comment alluding to what you said. Don't make the recruiter have to recall or remember things because they speak to so many different people. Be specific. I mean, I know from a lot of my recruiting contacts, there are so many people, there's so many different job specs. It's very hard.
I mean, like people call me and I'm like, I feel really bad. And I think I have a pretty decent memory, but I'm like, Lori, what did Lori? So if you just follow up and say, hey, Anna, it's Lori. I interviewed for this director position. We talked on the 13th. I have a pending offer. Just want to see if I'm still in consideration. Then I can go, okay, let me find out and get back to you and close the loop, right?
So I'd be curious if anyone else has any questions they'd love to ask from Anna, because we can chat the whole time. Definitely love to make this interactive. I know one of the challenges that we have is we don't always know what the other side is doing. From job seekers, where people are in their own specific world and recruiters are in their world. And it's hard to mesh the two because I don't like the whole idea of finger pointing and it's this one's fault and that one's fault. It's just hard to really talk about it, on common ground.
Absolutely. And going back to another thing with what like recruiters are looking for is really transparency, right? So I really try when I do my intake meetings with the hiring managers, I say, what is the interview process going to be? Like how many people, how long? And I try to set those expectations up front. So then when I screen the candidate, I can say, okay, from this point, After this conversation, you can expect at least 3 more conversations, and then they would move forward with an offer, and then, setting those expectations from there. So the same thing with candidates. I always say, if you have competing opportunities or need me to push up a conversation sooner than later so you can evaluate it equally, please communicate that with me, because I don't want to lose you, and I want to give you an opportunity to look at these opportunities at the same time, rather than making someone else wait 6 days before you sign an offer, before you have a chance to look at something else.
One thing that comes up a lot is COVID-19 in terms of where does it go in the interview process? Does it go on a resume? What happens as a hiring manager? Are they allowed to ask her? How does that whole balance into it?
I'm gonna. I'm not sure how comfortable I feel about talking about COVID and the hiring process.
I'll put it this way.
Okay.
I'll clarify. A lot of people ask about on the resume, should they put down that they're vaccinated? Does that make
it? It has nothing to do with whether you're qualified for the position or not. I don't believe your status should be in your headline, in your LinkedIn profile, on your cover letter, on your resume, anywhere. That's just my personal opinion.
That's what I'm looking for, basically.
I can't speak, for my organization, or if I were hiring people for my team, that wouldn't be a part of the process. But I know there's a lot of conversations around mandates and those different things. But it's your personal medical information, and it's not going to help you get hired.
That was as far as I wanted to go. So Alex Coyne does a lot of discussions about using bots and the like. Are you concerned you'll be replaced by a bot? We talk about artificial intelligence and that sort of thing.
Mm-mm. Absolutely not, Alex. I think technology will only help improve the process, but we're hiring people, and people need to be a part of that process to ensure that it matches the culture and the organization. And based on all the applicant tracking solutions that I've worked on throughout my career, it's still the humans that are dispositioning or declining people. Now, there are, slick bells and whistles that you can turn on to filter, sort, and ask different questions. But based on my experience, most organizations are not doing the back end sophistication to turn on all those bells and whistles. And we just get the resumes in order that they applied to, and we open them, view them, say move to screen, or, hold or disposition.
So I wonder, one of the things, again, this is from the job seeker's perspective, a lot of people have been out for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, and they want to do something to show that they've been relevant, then whether it's training or volunteering. From a hiring manager perspective or recruiting perspective, is it still considered a bias to have been out for a little while, or is it more understood? Because again, it's a mindset thing, and I know how job seekers feel about it. So I'm wondering from the other side.
Yeah, I would say more than 50% of the people that I talk to on a daily basis have some kind of gap or a decent amount of movement in the last 15 months. So contract, a stopgap job, staying home with a sick family member, moving across country. So I would say more so than not, there is some kind of transition, and recruiters we've been so much more acclimated to those conversations. And I think that's having a ripple effect into the hiring managers as well. So it's not as they've had a gap for 6 months, and it's like, we've all had some kind of weird gap in the last 15 months. So it's definitely much more accepted. And the only area that I feel like talent can tighten up is just telling the story in a high level, positive way of what you have been doing during that process, whether that's training, service work, caring for a loved one. But again, keeping it high level and not too personal, but moving through that process and just explaining it with confidence.
So do you want to ask a question of the audience and see how they respond? Or, Just in general, or
I
is there?
haven't really been reading the comments.
Well, I'll put a couple out there.
Okay.
Right. Communication between candidate and the recruiter is critical and needed, which is true. Basically, a lot of the comments are just like along the lines of from the perspective of what makes sense from a job seeker perspective. So what I think about a lot is you know, we talk a lot about video interviewing. We talk about a lot of practice and training. What do you find is a weakness, if you will, that job seekers have now? Are things you mentioned about interviewing? Are there other things that you would recommend that they do, or yeah.
I would say the greatest area that I feel that I experience from interviewing is just tightening up their answers and also following the lead of the person conducting the interview as well. I believe that there is an opportunity to help people be better interviewers, not only recruiters, but also hiring managers. And there's that delicate balance between a conversation and then it just being like, I'm asking you this series of all these situational interview questions, right? So I think it's kind of mirroring the style of the person that you're interviewing with. And then most people think, I know my resume, like I can interview. But it's not until they're out of the interview, then they realize how out of practice they are. And so get a career BFF, get an accountability buddy, get a coach to help you through that process, especially with those video one-way interview situations. Those really, I would imagine, are hard on job seekers, but showing up confidently and having those stories nailed down based on your accomplishments, where you've been, will really make it easier for you to get second and third interviews after the first.
So this is a common thing. What if a candidate has the skills but little to no industry experience? And this happens a lot, whether it's in pharma or finance. They have the skills, but they're new to the industry, but they know that they can bring something. There's a bias at times that you have to have that experience. Is there something a candidate can do, or is this something that's a mindset that's not going to change within the industry?
So I would make sure that if you have the skills, that you have really good stories to talk about how you use those skills in your industry. So you're making the person that's receiving that information nod their head and be like, yeah, I totally get it. And then networking into that industry and being able to say that you have been mentored by, or you've had, 4 informational interviews with people in the industry, and you've learned that these skill sets are critical in moving into the industry, and they validated that for you. So really kind of speaking from, I've spoken to experts in this industry and I know these skills make sense, then you're speaking more confidently, and the person receiving the information should help you get over that objection. Does that make sense?
It does. I
I've
think
had enough coffee today.
no, I think also one of the things that comes up a lot is the idea of salaries. You're asked to put a salary, and a lot of jobs don't list a specific salary range or anything. So it becomes, well, you want X and I have Y, sort of thing. I don't know what the reason is from the hiring company's perspective, but it's
hiring managers get like super freaked out when you post the salary, and I don't know why. And so when I'm doing intake, like I'll ask, are you comfortable if I post the salary on LinkedIn? Now there could be a couple of reasons why, but I encourage talking about money early and often. So if you're on a first screen with a recruiter and money doesn't come up by the end of the call, like don't let the call end. Say, based on this position, I think as a coordinator, it should pay 45 to 55, is that's what is budgeted for the position. Now, I talk about money, the pay bands that I'm given up front, to mutually determine if it aligns with the candidate's expectations, because I don't want to waste their time. And I could open that spot up for someone that, fits in the range. So don't be shy about talking about money, because it's your livelihood.
I think because a lot of times you look at a position that's out and they want 5 to 7 years of experience and they're paying for maybe 1 to 3 years, and maybe that's a disconnect within the company. But I always believe, I used to think that they want the salary up because they're afraid someone at the company would see the salary and say, oh my God, I'm not making this. Why is this for this or the other way?
Well, and that's where it's really important that organizations, have pay equity in their departments, right? And my company that I represent does a really good job of that. But that's the other thing that candidates need to understand is that if you are looking to pivot industries, you may have to be a little flexible with your salary to get your foot in the door, prove yourself, and then work your way up. But again, most recruiters or sourcers should have some kind of pay bands in place to tell the candidates, this is what we're working with, and does this work for you?
So Marty asked the question, are most of the resumes you receive actually job description of the things the candidate has done before, or is the resume does the resume show the way the candidate has increased the value of the companies they've worked at?
Marty, good question. I would say it's probably a hybrid of the two. So you don't want to take your old job description and just copy and paste that into your resume. We are more looking for the impact, the transformation, the leadership that someone has demonstrated in their past position. So using those stories and then tying them in with, making sure that it does convey the stories that are aligned with your previous job description, but you definitely don't want to just cut and paste and put a previous job description in the resume.
So the one question that we ask recruiters all the time is there a certain number of pages that you want the resume to be? I know the answer, but what I think the answer is going to be, but people ask me, how many pages should a resume be?
I mean, it really depends on the candidate and the level. Most recruiters I know, we are very squirrel-brained, probably a little ADD, so our attention span is very short. So you want to have really awesome information above the fold to really grab our attention, hook us in, and get us to read the whole resume and move you to a conversation or an interview. But pages and pages and pages is going to be tiring on our eyes, and we'd rather just talk to you and hear the amazing, super awesome things that they've done as opposed to reading it all.
So I'll ask a question. Because I'm of a certain age, and so are a lot of other people on this call, we talk a lot about the age factor. Is there age discrimination that you think, or is it a perception that job seekers have, or do you think it's really out there in your opinion? And again, I'm not talking from a legal perspective. I'm talking
yeah, absolutely. It is out there. It is unfortunate. And as recruiters, I always push back that I'm providing the most qualified candidate. And, as a champion for the underdog, I feel like organizations are missing out by not accessing talent that is more experienced, because they have so much wisdom, so much knowledge, such character and integrity that they can impart on younger generations. And so many are willing to work roles that weren't at their previous role, right? Because they just want to keep working. And I have been known to definitely be a champion in that area and say, what do you have to lose by trying this person out, Yeah. So I definitely think, unfortunately, it's out there. I think to overcome that, talent at that, that's more experienced really has to network a little bit harder than some of their younger competition.
But it's ironic because the really younger competition, they find a different type of age discrimination. They want people they're hiring. People want to hire for experience, and they don't have the experience. So how do they get the experience? So it's a different type of discrimination.
Oh, for more entry level?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I mean, I've worked positions like that in the past where it's like, I'll take someone entry level, but they have to have ABC. And I'm like, how can you take someone entry level and also have to have ABC systems experience?
Right.
So a lot of times recruiters are like, we're just doing the best we can with what we have.
So do you take into consideration corporate culture fit, and how do you evaluate that?
That's a great question. Alex, you're full of good questions today. So culture fit, I think, culture has definitely shifted since the pandemic, right? So how do we define culture in a remote working world now, right? Is really the question. I believe that I look at culture based on success I've had placing other people in the organization. That's kind of my benchmark. If they have the same energy and vibe and communication style and similar accomplishments, then the back brain side of my processing is like, well, Alex is similar to this person I hired. That makes me believe that they potentially would be a good cultural fit. Is really just kind of how my recruiter brain works.
No, I mean, it's really helpful to get these insights because I think that there are a lot of good people out there from the hiring side that do want to do the right thing, but I think in some cases they're stuck with the mindset of the companies that they work at too. Mm-hmm. As part of the culture, we have to do it this way, this way, this way, because.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, and I've seen between with different corporate clients that there are certainly moving into a more flexible place, and they seem more open to new ideas and ways to hire and onboard and train. So I think that's really positive, and something that we can continue celebrating and looking forward to.
So, Brenda, thoughts on a job seeker candidate reaching out to request to connect with a hiring manager on LinkedIn before or if they get the interview?
So before the interview, I recommend that they earn the right? Like if the recruiter or hiring manager is active on the platform and you can show up and socially like and engage on their content before dropping in to say, hey, Brenda, I applied for your social media coordinator position. Please look at my resume and let me know if I'm a fit, right? I would only do that after I'd shown up on your post a couple times and started kind of warming you up a little bit and getting your awareness. And then I would make it about them, right? After I've done that, I might drop into Brenda's DMs and say, Brenda, I see that you're hiring for a social media person. I've supported your last post. This is what I found amazing and fabulous. Here's 3 things about me and why I think I'm a good fit for the role. Would you be open to a quick 15-minute conversation? So that's kind of the process that I guide my clients through from like a social job searching standpoint, because we're socially selling here on LinkedIn and they're socially job searching in my mind. And then, I think connecting with people that you're interviewing with on LinkedIn is 100% acceptable. I don't think friending people on Facebook or other personal social medias is as accepted. So LinkedIn is a professional networking platform. So if you're interviewing with a company, I think it's perfectly acceptable to send a connection request and say, I've been following your company as a prospective employer, impressed with the work that you're doing, look forward to getting to, know you here on the platform.
You bring up a good point. If you find a person or a company that has relevant content as a starting point, reach out to them and be part of their network that way, because you've built the relationship that way. I mean, it's not a connection, but you're sharing a common story, a common theme. And that's so.
And I think I probably picked this up from Judy Fox, but she said, if people see us having public conversations, so commenting on our ideal hiring manager company's page, they're going to be more inclined to trust us in the direct messages or to take the conversation off the platform.
Definitely. Now, I think a lot of the things have changed over the years. Hiring happens all the time now. It used to be that different times there'd be different type of hiring. And I think so much of that is a mindset, as much as anything else. Are there certain types of client or certain types of job seekers that you find are easier to work with than others, like certain industries or certain personalities?
I think it's the characteristic of willingness is the thing that lights me up, and people that are willing to take messy action over perfect action, because that's the place that I operate from. So it resonates with me. So I work with entry level recent grads all the way up to C-level executives, in banking and finance and retail, a little bit of everything. And I tend to attract introverts, which is really funny because I'm very extroverted.
I'm an introvert. Brenda's an introvert. I think a bunch of other people are on this call.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a good or bad thing.
No, and it's interesting because um, it's almost as if when we partner with that opposite, you're able to just help pull some of that out of them because they're potentially attracted to what they would like to emulate or model success after, right? So really helping support people in showing up on the platform and supporting them and building that confidence, as well as their interview presentation, really helps build that strong foundation to move opportunities forward.
So I'll ask the question: would you be open to connecting with people on the call, or the people that watch the recording of this?
Always, yes, I would. I mentioned that you saw me here on Ken's Live, and let me know more about you. I'd love to connect with some more folks.
Does anyone else have any other specific comments or things that they'd like to talk about? What do you have going on besides this, Anna? Any events or any things coming up?
Yeah, so I think I will probably be going live with one of my friends, June, on right around Halloween, so maybe Saturday the 31st. But I do have the Misfit Job Seeker to Confident Job Closer program that is going to be launching in 2022. So really helping Misfit job seekers become confident job closers in 90 days. So this will be my first group course, and I'm super excited.
If you get enough introverts together, do you get an extrovert? Maybe an ambivert? I really don't know.
It's interesting. As I'm getting older, I need more like re-energized time. So even though I am very extroverted, I have to take time to really process and like refuel.
Does Anna work directly with job seekers or only with employers?
I coach job seekers, and the only employer I work for is the one that I do part-time recruiting for. So I don't work with any businesses yet, but I anticipate some special projects around LinkedIn for small businesses coming next year.
So I guess, Alex, again, are you ever confused with Hannah Morgan?
I don't think I've met Hannah Morgan.
Hannah Morgan, the commercial.
Feel free to facilitate an introduction.
Sure. I think one of the things that I have found the best part, and I shout out to Brenda and Alex, everyone else, is the people I've met. The pandemic, you want to make lemonade out of lemons. I've met so many amazing people, and it's great for us to chat here, not on Clubhouse, which I've pretty much gone AWOL from. I do check.
I know. I feel so bad. I feel like I'm cheating on Clubhouse by not being there, but I'm honestly enjoying a little break.
Yeah, I am too, and we were talking before. I'm actually trying out Discord. I mean, I'm always learning. I had never heard of Discord before, which is another app, like Slack, and I just don't even know.
I've seen Luke Matthews talks a lot about Discord, and another gentleman, Andrew Bennett, I believe, had mentioned it, but I can't take on another social media platform. I'm trying to get active on TikTok, like my friend June, who's crushing it. And then we're working on building the Job Search Angels membership for 2022 as well. So yeah, you can let me know how Discord is, but LinkedIn is going to be coming out with some super new, cool, awesome things as well. So I'm just kind of waiting for that. I do miss stories though. Do y'all miss stories?
I don't know that I do, because I never really used it that much. I think they didn't really give it a lot of time. The thing I'm looking forward to most on LinkedIn is when they actually branch out and do a Clubhouse type integration.
The audio only.
My question has always been how they're going to roll it out, because on Clubhouse it's one level. Here you've got connections. So my hope is they do it with something like groups or something where you have a structure in place.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that's what will bring groups back alive.
That's the hope that we all have.
Yeah.
For sure. So, Brenda, making lemon pie out of lemons.
I love it.
My pie here in New Jersey is pizza pie. Have to be honest. I know Detroit has different pie, but Brenda gives me a good idea. We should probably do something for the holidays, whether it's Thanksgiving, or just maybe have a pie LinkedIn Live event or something like that.
Oh, I wish I was a baker. My family has been cursed with we are horrible bakers. We're really good salad makers, but baking is not in our DNA. I'll definitely show up to support the pie making, though.
So I definitely think, and Edith brings this up too, you want to re-energize your time. One of the things that introverts absolutely love is having the downtime to do very little, nothing.
Yes.
And I think that's so important, although it's been a little bit of a challenge now. A lot of you on the call know I'm a Red Sox fan. So, of course.
How are you feeling about the Braves?
Well, this is the conversation, and we joke about in the family. My wife is a Mets fan.
Okay.
A Red Sox fan. My two kids are Braves fans.
Okay.
So right now the question is, who is my wife going to root for in the World Series? Is she going to root for the Braves? She dislikes the Braves a lot as a Mets fan, but she wants to support them, and the Red Sox too. So it's just one of those things where a bunch of us on this call are from the area.
Right.
When the Yankees played the Red Sox, we had a lot of conversations about that. Now with Atlanta, Rachel Simon's in Atlanta every day. We check on each other. So I think.
Well, I mean, as far as I'm super impressed with how well they've done despite losing Acuna for the season. I expect Freddie Freeman to have a big game after struggling in the first two games, and then it's just two more wins, and we're up 2-0 against the Dodgers, right? So the first team to win 4 goes to the World Series. So I think we're in luck.
Rachel and I have already talked about a LinkedIn Live, Braves Red Sox LinkedIn Live.
Nice.
I don't know how we're going to actually pull it off, but I just think it's another commonality. I mean,
yeah,
I put that on my profile just as something to talk about, because I think it's so I know I feel badly for the Mets fans and Jets fans. Let me put it this way: as a Giants fan, which I am, and those in Detroit as Lions, you guys, I get it too. But I think the challenge is just this is all part of a conversation, and I really want to thank you for your time today. Anna.
Absolutely, I've loved the conversation. Thank you.
And I look forward to, for those of you here, we have Alex Freund coming tomorrow with a special discussion. We're actually going to do that on Zoom. I hope to see some of you then. Meantime, Anna, have a great day.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for the great questions and for tuning in. And feel free to send me a connection request.
Take care.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks a lot. Bye.